Okay, today we're changing out the trailing arm bushings and the rear wheel bearing on my 71 Corvette. This started a couple weeks ago. Lewis, a friend of mine, he's got the C3 Corvette channel. If you get a chance to watch his channel, he's got great videos on there. But he called me and he said he's got that 81 that he bought that he's working on, and he knows he had a little bit of wiggle in them in his trailing arms, and mine have had quite a bit of play, I felt like, and I just assumed it was the bearings in the wheel, but it actually turns out to be the pivot bushing that this trailing arm fits up into the frame on. But I'll show you here. I don't know if you can see that, this trailing arm, kind of watch it. I know I have to change those bushings, and while I've got it apart, I'm going to go ahead and replace my wheel bearings. Here's one more shot from the back of the car to show you how much wiggle I've got in this trailing arm assembly. You can see that wheel moving quite a bit. Can't right now. Well, I'm not going to do it. I didn't think I'd get cleared. underneath here. And that's it.
There you go.
And there it is.
Wow.
My U-joints don't feel bad, but I'm gonna go ahead and replace them since I got new ones. See, I don't know if you can see the rust there.
Oh yeah.
See the discoloration? That's an indication of a U-joint going bad. It's dry, it's turning rusty in there. That's actually coming from inside the cap, that rust. And you can see on this end, see how greasy that is? And see, this one won't, I can't even move it. Oh, it's tight as all get out. See how easy that moves? This one, I can't even move it without a problem. Okay, I'm going to change out the U-joints on this drive shaft. I'm not going to videotape that because I made a video on how to change U-joints out in a previous video. Okay, one thing I did notice, I've watched some guys on YouTube do U-joints, and they'll take, and let me get this camera set up so I can kind of show you what they do. This tube, it's critical you don't damage this tube. And I've seen guys, they'll put it right in the middle of the vise like this and tighten it down. You're clamping on that tube, and sometimes depending on the drive shaft, this tubing isn't very thick. I mean, it could be less than an 1/8 inch thick. If you dent that could throw out the whole balance of this drive shaft. You always want to make sure, what I always do if I'm going to chuck it in the vise, I'll slide it down here to where I'm actually I'm clamping on the, where it's solid here, basically with the yoke in here in the weld. That's where it's clamping. If you see down here, you can see light all along here. It's not touching the tube at all. So if I have to kind of beat around on this a little bit or something, you're not going to hurt that tube. And drive shafts are pretty critical for alignment, or else you can get a vibration. And if you ever look at a factory drive shaft, they just shove these things together in a machine and automatically welds them and everything, then it goes through and it balances it. Because they don't care if this isn't running perfectly true, they can correct it with balance weights. The real world, in a job shop, I've retubed thousands of drive shafts in my career, made new ones, replaced yokes, that kind of stuff, spline shafts. And we never had a balancer, and we never had an issue with any vibration with our drive shafts, because when we retube them, we use DOM tubing, which is a seamless tubing, very precise tubing. We make sure it's straight and round. And then when we put these yokes in each end, they're a drive-in fit. So you drive them in, but you have to line them up. And then after you weld them in place, you can actually peen the weld to adjust them a little bit to make them run perfectly true. And that's why if you ever get a drive shaft done at a machine shop, you're not going to see any counterweights welded on it, because we make them perfectly true so you don't have to worry about any vibration. That's something to think about when you're doing this drive shaft. And once I get the yokes changed out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to check this drive shaft to make sure it's okay, that it's true. The one on the other side, I actually had to peen the weld a little bit because it was off just a little bit. Let me get the U-joints out, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about as far as checking for alignment on your drive shaft. Okay, I've got the drive shaft all apart. Now I'm going to show you some things to check on it to make sure it's a good drive shaft before you go putting all new U-joints in it and everything. I'm sure this one's fine because it came out of the car. I don't think it's original because there's no counterweights on it. I've disassembled this half shaft, and I ran a file across these surfaces here to make sure there's no burrs or anything on them on both sides. Okay, I already did that. I took a rat tail file and ran on the inside because sometimes you'll get burrs right here where when you're driving the U-joint out, it'll hit there and leave a little burr. And the way we have to check these, we have to slide a tube through there and then measure across it. And if there's a burr, it's going to throw off your measurement. So, okay, once you do that, I went ahead and wire brush the ends, get all the old paint off and everything, make them look a little nicer. I'm going to repaint them when I put it back together. But the first thing you want to check is make sure it's sitting flat. So you can put it down. There shouldn't be any rock there. Okay. So that sits perfectly flat. Okay. So you know the yokes are perfectly in line then, because these are machine surfaces you're checking it against. The next thing you want to do is you want to put it up in some V-stands. Like this. Okay, so the first thing we want to check on this tube is if it's round and true. It runs true. If it runs out like 10 thousandths or so, you can straighten these tubes. So let's see what this one does. Okay, that's 0, 3, 3, 5. Okay, so it's a little bit out of round, but it's within 5 thousandths. That's good enough for this. It's such a short shaft, it's not going to make any difference. The longer the shaft, the more you have to worry about run out because you have more mass swinging in the air and more chance for it to flux and everything. So the tube's good. We know the yokes are in line, and you always want them in line. You don't want one 90 degrees from the other one or you're going to get a bad vibration. So let me get set up here on the ends and I'll show you how we check the ends. Okay, to check the ends, I've got a height gauge here and just a piece of shafting, and anything will work. You know, if you have a piece of 1/2 inch diameter, would work just the same because you're just touching off the top points, and you come on the outside or as far out as you can. That gives you the most accurate way to measure it. If you're measuring on the inside, you're not going to see how much it's off as much as you come out here, because the further out you go, the more it's going to be off. So what you want to do, you want to start out by setting your height gauge where it just clears out. I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see this. And come over and check the other side. And then you want to turn the drive shaft until you get where this is just clearing on both sides, okay? It just doesn't quite touch. Okay, that's really good there. So you rotate 180 degrees, and in theory, you should have the same measurement there that you did from the first side. Like I said, my other drive shaft was off just a little bit. Dang, this one's really good. So that looks good that way. So while I have my height gauge set to that size, I'm going to swing it around and do the same thing to this end and check it that way. Yeah, that's perfect. You get the same measurement both ways. Okay, so I know this way up and down they're fine. So now I need to check it this way. So what you do is you come up and check on each side of here and see if you get what you have to do is you got to keep rotating it until you keep going down and getting the same clearance on both sides. Okay, that's pretty good there. So you rotate 180 degrees just like doing the other way, and you come up, just keep rotating it till you almost touch there. Dang, that looks really good. I think we're okay on that end. This drive shaft looks really good. I figured it would because it's an aftermarket drive shaft. Say if I check this and it looked like this end was down a little bit, what you do is you go on this side here because it's down, you rotate it around, take a nice ball peen hammer. I usually use my 32 ounce. I think my other one's a 16 ounce. It's a smaller hammer, so it's easier to get in here on the weld because you don't want to hit the tube and dent it. You know, you want to peen right on this weld. What you do, you take the peen in first and you peen that about that far. You peen that weld and you come back with the flat end and you flatten that weld out. And you might not believe how easy this will move, but you'll actually stretch that weld and cause this to tip down. And you want to keep checking as you do it. You don't want to go too far. And you keep checking it back and forth, and you do that until you get it reading where you get the same measurement here and here as you do when you rotate it around. Same way this way. If you got that shaft in there and this is sagging down, you go to that side and peen that weld, and you only need to go about that far. You don't need to go all the way around it. Usually about maybe a third of it, and you know, from the center of your point here, each way about that far, and peen that weld. You want to dent it first, because that dent makes valleys, and then when you flatten those valleys out, that's when it stretches the weld. So that's how you check your drive shaft. Okay, I was showing you earlier before I took the drive shaft apart that I couldn't turn the drive shaft in this part. It was tight. I mean, I couldn't move it. Well, when I pulled the one side off, you can see it's pretty dusty and dry. Okay, when I pulled the other side off, dust actually came out, and all the rollers, you can see how normally they'll stay up against the wall of the U-joint because the grease is still holding them in there. This thing was bone dry. Look at that. Okay, and you can see how dry this was. And you can see once it gets dry like that, it starts binding up, and it actually puts little grooves. You can see it better on this side. It'll actually wear little grooves at an angle in there because it's trying to force itself to turn, and it's twisting those needles, and that's not going to last very long at all. That would have been giving me a lot of trouble here pretty quick. I'm surprised I didn't have a popping sound in the rear end. A lot of times when these do this, you roll your wheels and you'll hear a popping sound because this thing's popping, trying to straighten itself out as it goes around. You always want to make sure you check your U-joints. These were even greasable, so this was like this when I got the car, and I never did check them. I should have. Part of my problem was I just assumed the guy, he replaced pretty much everything on this car. I assumed these were replaced and new. Obviously they weren't, because you know, no little bit I drove them, they wouldn't look like this. And even on the one on the other end, let's see here, I thought you could see, you can start seeing some lines in there. You see those lines? Okay, it's starting to wear too, even though they still had some grease in them, but obviously I don't think they were greased from whenever these were installed originally. So I'm going to go and put all the U-joints in them. The U-joints I'm putting in are greaseless. They don't have a grease zerk in them. They come pre-greased, and you just put them in, and hopefully they last as long as I need them to last. But it's definitely not good.
Wow.
Wow, that came out
seriously.
That's the way you want it to come out, because it's got these splines on the end. It locks in there just kind of like a stud bolt on your spindle.
Yeah.
And that kind of keeps it from turning.
I've never seen that happen before.
No, I'm very impressed.
That is awesome.
That.
Wow.
And you can see that one was definitely time for a change.
Yeah.
That came out easier. I don't like that. See how I don't know if you can see that in the video, but see how it's bowed?
Yeah, it gets cupped.
It should look like that. It should be flat. So I don't know what happened there.
Wow.
I don't know why it tightened down that tight, but the bolt didn't seem to be that tight.
Everything is coming apart way too easy.
Exactly, which I guess is good.
Yeah, of course. This is great.
This dust shield I took off my 80. All these should have this on there. It presses down on the lip on the housing there, and then it rides inside of this like that as an added dust shield. You have your main seal here that keeps the grease in and the dirt and moisture out.
Yeah.
But this keeps the big chunks from getting in there and tearing up that little seal. So mine was missing that. Luckily I was able to take these off of that 80. So
Very cool.
okay. Okay, you can see the spacer or the shim, and then this is the spacer.
Yeah.
And then this bearing, it's on there tight. So I'm probably gonna take my torch and cut it off. But and you can see how loose that seal is in there, the rubber shot.
Yeah,
you know, there's no rubber,
totally
rubber
gone.
seal in it all anymore. So it's a good thing to tear into this now. And this bearing, the outer bearing, I'll have to knock it out because that outer seal's holding it in. Okay, there's the outer bearing. It's pretty dry. I mean, it's got a little more grease than the other side had in it, but it's definitely dry. And you can see this rubber lip is just gone on the seal. So there was no more sealing there at all. They replaced all the parking brakes on both sides. Are all brand new, all the parts forward and the shoes and everything, which is good. But a lot of these parts, and to me, this looks like a replacement A-arm. It doesn't, or a trailing arm. It doesn't look like it was original, I don't think. I don't know. I could be wrong, but. So, the next thing I need to do is, these are flared over, kind of like the ones I'm going to put back in. So I got to put it in a drill press and drill this lip off of it so I can get it apart. I think it's going to rain.
Voila!
See little notches. There's one thing you got to watch these. It's pretty critical. A lot of times, right in here, you kind of see a little bump there.
Yeah.
When you're driving out, you'll hit that edge and swell that up. And if you don't clean that off when you put the bearing in, it'll be crooked in there. The one on my other one is pretty bad on one side. This one I don't. Yeah, see right there? See that shiny spot? If you don't. Yeah, it cuts through the bearing, but it doesn't touch the shaft. The threads suck.
What's that?
The threads are kind of jacked up. I think I'll be okay because the threads down here are good, but they must have beat on the end of this to get it apart at one time and screwed them up, so I had to grind them down.
Oh.
That is what they should look like.
Yeah.
But all your holding's back behind this hole because it's got
Of
a
course.
castle nut,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
strength-wise it'd still be okay, but I don't know. I'll clean them up and see what they look like. They look like they might be pulled a little bit.
Yeah.
It depends on how good this face runs. So.
gonna clean the shaft?
I'm gonna check it for straight, for true. If it runs true, it's good. I just have to finish cleaning that up to paint. I paint the back side, I don't paint the front side, but that runs out about 1,000 there. That's pretty good for a 3-jaw chuck. And then I have to make sure this bearing area is running through. That runs within 1,000. So now I got to make sure this face is running through. They actually make shims if this face runs out. Shims you can put between that and your rotor, but I don't like that. That face runs out 5,000. Not bad. I guess I'll go ahead and use that one. That only runs out 4,000. And the threads look better than my threads. Plus the fact that this bearing came off fairly easily compared to what it should be. I mean, and you can see how it looks like the bearing's been working on that surface. See how smooth this one looks?
Yeah.
See how that's it's like that bearing's maybe spun or something on there at one time or other. So I think just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and use that other spindle. Okay, this is the shaft that I used to check my preload on my bearings. I had to machine this shaft. You can buy them. Any Corvette supply place will have, any place you get your parts. They sell the tools like this to do this, but with me having a lathe and a mill and my machining experience, I decided to save myself 120 bucks and make my own. So I went ahead and machined this. I made a spacer, and then I threaded it to fit this nut. So what you have to do is you take the bigger bearing, goes on like this, and it slips down on there. That's a slip fit, both bearing diameters. On the spindles themselves, it's a press fit. That's why you have to use this tool, because you can't get a good feel when you tighten it down, because it might be tightening down on the press fit and not really tightening down on the spacer and the shim that you want it to. And then if it's too much clearance, you got to take it back apart. It's a real pain to get it off if you're trying to do it on the spindle, because they're press fit on. So that's why they make this tool. I'm going to go ahead and just squirt a little bit of WD-40 on this bearing just to kind of lubricate a little bit. After I get the preload set on these, I'll take these bearings and I'll pack them with grease before we put them and do the final assembly on it. So, and you make sure you're putting this on the right way when you're putting it on the bearings. And you know this, when it's got this lip here, that goes towards the center of the car. The half shaft comes in here, hooks to the flange that bolts on the end of the spindle. So if you're ever getting ready to do this, you can just look at it. And another thing, the cup on this side, you can see how wide it is. You can physically see that this one's wider. Okay, so the narrow one goes with the bigger diameter bearing, and the wider one goes with the smaller diameter bearing. So I'm just going to drop that down on there like that. It's sitting on that bearing. And you want to be sure and put this on the right direction. The big diameter goes down against that end, drops in there. And I'm going with the thickest shim I have first, so I know it will definitely show in play when I put it all together. And then you can figure back, if you don't have in play, you can figure out how much to take out to get it the right clearance. Okay, and again, I'm going to squirt just a little bit of WD-40 in the rollers there just to give it a little bit of lubrication so it'll seat down in there easier. Okay. And you want to be careful while you're doing all this. Don't be in a dusty situation or anything because these bearings are open. Make sure everything's good and clean. You snug that down, and then these have to be torqued to 100 foot-pounds when you're assembling them for the car. So that's what we want to torque it to on this. It kind of sticks on there. I got to tap it loose. Ideally, you want the right size socket for that. Okay, you can see it spins free, but you can hear the clearance in there. If you can hear the clearance, you know it's way too loose. This is another little thing I made up to set my dial indicator on. Just a plate to bolt on here. It's nothing critical. Again, it was another piece of steel I had. That's why it's got that big hole in it. I'd made it for something else originally. I don't know what. But that hole won't hurt anything with the dial indicator.
I'm just letting it record. You can delete whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna. And you want to be set on the. Yep.
Yeah, you want to be on the end of your spindle here, and you can set this on 0. Okay, that's 0. And then just lift straight up on it. Okay, there's 0. It's 15 thousandths movement there. Okay, the factory says you can have 1 to 8 thousandths clearance. I like to shoot for around 2. Okay, that spacer I have in there right now is 145 thousandths thick. So, in theory, if you take 145 minus 15 thousandths, it'd be 130 thousandths, right? Yeah, 130 thousandths. The closest shim I have is 133, which in theory would give me 3 thousandths clearance. I have another one that's 127, which would be way too tight. So I'm gonna try this 133. And what I might do, like I said, I like to have 2 thousandths clearance. We'll see how it looks. I can put this up in the lathe and take 1 thousandths off of this if I need to. If I had a surface grinder, I'd do it on a surface grinder. It'd be a lot easier. But unfortunately, I don't have a surface grinder. So I'm going to take this one out, the 145, and put the 133 in there. Make sure it's clean and there's no burrs on it. And we'll tighten it back down. I'm pulling up down on it. You can't hear that clacking back and forth anymore, so you know it's tighter. We'll see if it's what it needs to be. There's 0. That's showing 2 thousandths clearance. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. So this one's ready to be assembled into the rest of the housing and everything. So we'll take this apart, get it off of here, and our next step will be assembling all this back onto the trailing arm, and then we can put the spindle assembly in it. Okay, so we're going to start putting this assembly together now. There's a few things you want to be careful about when you're putting it together. First off, you want to make sure you put this on the right direction. This has multiple steps on it, and this tapers this way, so that goes towards the center of the car. And then on your trailing arm, this flat plate is always on the top, whether it's the right side or left sides. So you know this is a top, so these go towards the bottom and they go towards the center of the car. So you want to just drop them down in the 4 studs. And you might have to tap it down in there with a rubber hammer because it goes into a pilot in the trailing arm. Okay, it's got to go down a little bit more, but the bolts will pull it down. The next thing that goes on here is this holds your brake caliper. And again, that drops down with the ears pointed towards the center of the car. You can see how it dips down. Now, this piece goes on next, and you want to be very careful with this piece because there's these hold the brake shoe retaining spring assemblies, and it goes in these 2 holes. Like that. The one on this side here, and it's opposite on the other side of the car, it goes against this housing right there. You can see where that dimple is right there. It fits down in there, and if you put this on first, I'm gonna leave this one off because you can put it in on afterwards, but this one, if you put this on first, you can't get to this to put it in. You see it's captured in there now. This other one, I can come in from underneath and slip it in. I'll show that in a minute. Gotta make sure. Okay. I wasn't sure I could put that in without putting it through there first, but it'll go on there. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put the emergency brake shoe assembly on here before I finish tightening these down.
And you can still use, we're gonna have to split or splice this and
Okay.
so
Oh. There. Phew. There we go. There. And then you can see this as you pull your emergency brake cable, it spreads. You can see right here, that lever there. See how it spreads the shoes out? That's what makes your emergency brake work. So the next thing we do is we can take our bigger bearing that goes towards, the spindle goes in like this. So I can go ahead and put the bigger bearing in. And then you have two different size seals. The bigger seal goes this way, so it'd go like this in this housing. Okay. I usually like to do this in the press, so you can put a flat plate on and push them straight in. I can't really get this in the press very easily, so I'm gonna have to put like a plate on it and drive it in. And you wanna be very careful on these, because if you get them started in crooked and you bend it, you're gonna have to buy a new seal. Okay. I like to put a little bit of grease on the lip of the seal. And then I'll put a little bit on help those bearings slide up on there a little bit. There's already grease in the bearings, but okay. I'm gonna flip this over now. Be sure and put these in. If you forget them, you're in trouble. Again, the big end goes down towards the big bearing. Drop that down in there. Your spacer goes down on top of that one. And then your inner bearing. Okay. And what I do next is, I don't put the seal in yet till I get this all in, but I go ahead and drop this down on here. And then the tool I made, again, you can buy these at any place you get your Corvette parts. This tool is about 120 bucks. I made my own. Just took a whole piece of shafting, threaded the internal end on this end to fit the spindle, and the other end to fit a big nut. That's how to screw. That screws down on the spindle. The spacer goes on there, and then I made it fit the same nut that I fit for the pre-assembly of the spindle. That's 2,000, it's a little over 2,000 in play now. So when in theory, it's open more than what it should be. So when I put the nut on it and tighten everything back down now, it should pull it down to 2,000 in play. So that should be perfect. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to put that other seal in here on this side, and then that dust shield. Yeah, the dust shield, and then the seal that goes on this side. Again, you put it down this way so your lip's pointing down on your rubber, right, so that it keeps the grease from coming out, keeps moisture and dirt from going in. Put that other one in.
A little tappy tap tap.
Yeah. Okay, that's in. Now you gotta put this piece on, and it just presses on too. So and again, you want to be careful with it. It's just sheet metal. And there you go. Now we'll put the yoke back on. With the correct washer and nut, and then we'll torque this down to 100 foot-pounds. They recommend putting this grease on any of the surface of the polyurethane that's going to be rubbing to keep it from squeaking. And the kit came with this grease. I think you can use lithium grease too if you don't have any of this stuff. This stuff almost looks like dielectric grease. I don't know what it is. The end that goes up in that bracket has to have these spacers put on each side, or else it'd be too loose in there. And it comes with these bolts, all the fasteners, everything. This square fits into there to take care of the slop in that slot for the factory style struts. And just slide it right in. There it goes. Okay, I'm going to push it down out of my way, and now we can do the half shaft. Puts up on Those two tabs. Okay, now we're ready for the trailing arm. Okay, these are kind of a pain to get in because you got to get in past all these brackets here and put it in up in there, and you can't really get your fingers up in there. So what I do is I put a piece of fishing line through this hole, and tie it off so I just have a loop on there like that, so you can pick the bolt up with the string. And make sure you have this washer on here first, because on the other side I put it together and had it all together and realized I didn't put this washer on, so I take it all back apart. Okay, now to get this fished up through here, you can't get your hand up in here, so what I do is I just take a piece of wire. Okay, so I fish it through the hole this way, like that. I gotta make sure I'm on the right side of this brake line. Okay. Now I can take the end of this string, or fishing line, and you can use any fine line like this. You just can't use anything that's thick or it won't go through the hole with the bolt at the same time, so you gotta use something pretty thin. I've seen guys use even dental floss. I just happen to have some fishing lines, so that's what I'm using. Okay, and now you can pull this back through, and I'll show you why I made this so long in just a second. There we go. Is that light in your way? Okay, and this is the reason I made this line so long, is because you got to get this fed through here. And then back up through this hole here. Because as you pick this up and slide it up in there, you got to feed it through there so you can pull that bolt all the way through. Stick that like that, keep it from moving on me for a second, and then I got to get underneath this controller.
You gonna need a jack or anything like that, or
no? I just hold it. It's kind of hard because you got to kind of wiggle it while you're putting it in there.
freaking weird yoga?
Yeah. And I'm not worried about this alignment shims yet, because you can slide them in afterwards.
Yeah.
I want to get this out of my way so it's nothing but fishing line in there. And then when you shove it in, you can kind of see the hole where the bolt is and try to line it up. And you don't want to pull too hard, because That's only like 7-pound fishing line. Kind of try to pick up on the back of that bolt. Once you get it in that first hole just a little ways, it should slide right in. There it goes. Okay, it started into the arm, so now I got to get the arm positioned to where it's going through the arm, but there's no weight on the bolt itself, so it's like slide right through like that. Okay, you can see the bolt there. Okay, now just get some pliers and pull that the rest of the way through. Just kind of wiggle the arm, and there you have it. Wow.
Yeah, I guess without that fishing line and the wire, it's impossible to.
It'd be really tough. That's what works best for me. You guys, you know, everybody can do whatever they want to do, but that's what I like to do. Put this on here so it doesn't wiggle out while I'm doing other things, because we still have to put the shock, hook up the strut and the half shaft to the trailing arm and the leaf spring. I'm gonna put the bolt in for the spring. And again, these are urethane, so you want to kind of put some grease on them any place they're going to be rubbing. Sticky stuff. And then this one goes into the back of the A-arm here, or the trailing arm. I keep thinking I'm working on the front end, and then you drop your bolt down through the top here. So what I need to do next is I gotta get a jack underneath this leaf spring and jack it up. And this is kind of squirrely the way you have to do this. You can get that kind of started up in there like that. If you jack it up first and try to get it, you can't get the bolt down through it. Okay. A lot of sticky grease. Bolt, but I still put a cotter pin in it. And what I do is I just back this down to the cotter pin so it gives me as much travel as possible. And there you go. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to put the strut in this end, because the shaft that holds the strut in also holds the bottom end of the shock. Once I get the strut in, then I can put the shock in. And put a little bit of grease on these faces again. Well, I don't see none too extra grease. I think that's about all I'm going to get out of this tube. Got to figure pretty close. There we go. Yeah.
Need to get a better angle here. Should be pretty close.
Damn, I think that's almost hitting on the rubber before it goes all the way in. See, this goes to the inside. I don't like that.
This.
I think I need a real hammer. I think the other side went easier than this side. You ready? To keep it from turning.
So this,
Is that in?
yeah.
Washer on it. I was looking to see if that's pretty. The bad thing with that shock in there, it's gonna make it a pain in the ass to do my half shaft, I think. There.
Just tap it from below.
Huh?
Just tap it with a
Like
puncher.
this?
Pretty much. Yeah, that's better now. It's sideways like that.
Can I get the other side bent out?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you can see that bracket right there. That's where the spring goes in. And like I said, there's 2 holes here and then 2 holes in your rotor. You'll make sure you line those up because it can go where you can cover them up. And you have to have those lined up so when you go to hit that star wheel to set your parking brake, you can reach in there and get it. Otherwise, you can't access it. There. And then what I want to do is, to adjust the parking brake, I want to put a couple of lug nuts on here just to hold this tight against the hub so you're getting a good fit. Okay, so that's good and tight. shot. You go 2 clicks back, right? Okay, now this is the last thing we have to do is put the caliper on and brake line. Now I'm going to try to push these rubber bushings down in here to separate the pads, and that should hold the pads away so I can get it down over the rotor. Yeah, there we go. I just stick this in here to keep it from leaking everywhere for now. Oh, you can see right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's about where I want it, about halfway up. I told you that's the house we're going to buy, the one back behind this one. And the other property